the middle class is the strength of any country, Ashley. If we lose them, you lose the country.
In line now. Welcome back. Brent Hutto joins me now in studio, which is a treat. How are you doing today, Brent?
Man, well, I'm just happy to be sitting here staring at you. Well, this is fantastic. We're usually just, speaking over the telephone through the great technology, but it's just great being here back at OOIDA headquarters, where so much of trucking happens, and you guys really defend the rights of the American trucker, and I think that's one of the most wonderful things in the world. So just great to be here and be in studio. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's dive into market conditions. Today's song, after you sung it to me, I knew what it was, but I didn't know before.
Well, the song is "What's Up" by 4 Non-Blondes. I mean, even my kids that are like, this is from 1993. Even they know this song because it's like, hey, 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 what's going? That song. I'm going to I just brutalized it, but no, I put that in there because it's like, what's up? It's like everybody talks about the challenges in the marketplace, the economy. Are we going to go in recession? What's going on with tariffs? Trucking's having a difficult time. The fleets are rebalancing the way in which they move their freight. But surprisingly, Ashley, there's more freight in the spot market than normal, like almost 16% more than normal. So that's why I put "What's Up," because it kind of makes you scratch your head where one part of the market might not be benefiting from some of these things. Other parts do. In the spot market, where we handle all the hard to move freight, well, those owner operators move that. They did the good work, right? They moved that tough to move freight. And that's why I chose that song, because it kind of makes everybody scratch their head. That'll be a little bit of my theme today about this, like, why are things the way they are? But there's always opportunity out there when you go look.
Talk to me about some of the top regions and lanes from over the past week.
Yeah. Well, before we jump into that, let me just talk about the marketplace in general. Yeah. So, indexes are up. The pressure is up. Normal pressure is about 50, 55. And that's the balance between the available freight and the number of trucks that say, hey, I'm empty and ready to haul. And it's not a perfect number, but it's a number that has been around for over 20 years that's put out by TruckStop, and one that many people look to for the balance in the market. Usually it's about 55. That's the balance in the market. Well, it's been in the 90s and mid-80s for quite a while, and it went from 91 to 88, which is very little change in it. But that just tells you that it favors the trucker. It favors the owner-operator, favors the spot market carrier, which is a good thing. As I mentioned, freight availability actually went up. Again, from last week to this, from 2 weeks ago to last week. Remember, all the data that I'm talking about right now is only 7 days old. Freshest data on freight I say the universe. Most people say it's the planet. I say it's the universe. But it's still 16% above, which is super great. That means you can negotiate best. So negotiate. I know I say this a lot. You and I talk about this a lot. Please negotiate. Rates stayed even at 251. And remember, that's just a point in time. Do not take that as a holistic number. It just shows you that the marketplace kind of stayed kind of balanced where it is. Van increased 1 cent. Still need more beneficial van rates. It went from 184 to 185. Flatbed 265 to dropped 2 cents to 263. Reefer went up 10 cents from 217 to 227. So refrigerated. A giant jump in just 7 days. It shows you how you can negotiate in this marketplace. But the outbound tender fuel kind of stayed the same at 42 cents for the fuel surcharge, but the outbound tender reject index continues to stay above 5%, and that just means we're going to have more and more freight. That's the contract freight that gets rejected. So that's kind of that. And so some of the lanes and stuff that are in the marketplace when you think about this is that as the load availability went up, you're going to have more optionality. You had increases in the West Coast, you had South Central, Midwest, right where we are today. Southeast actually went down 2%, but it's been so far up, it's been crazy. But all over the country, there's more available freight. When you think about rates in those, since it kind of stayed even, you saw very little change. So kind of stability in rates, where you see stability in a marketplace, that's a good thing. So some of the areas in which we saw improvement were as far as in lanes. I even saw some Kansas City rates, but still good freight out of Houston, whether you're in van, whether you're in flatbed, or whether you're in reefer, not out of Houston, out of Texas. Mm-hmm. And then some of the same standard markets that we're looking at. So I'm just saying it's still a decent. I'm not saying it's great. I know inflation sucks. It's hard on everybody. It's hard on me. I got 5 kids. Talk about inflation. So, but it's still a good market for truckers. And that's something we're going to hit on in just a minute.
Now, reefer going up 10 cents. That seems like a big jump. It's
a huge jump. Yeah, thank you for asking me about that. Well, you have different parts of the time of the year depending on what's going on in agriculture season. So and different big markets can make substantial changes. I don't know exactly where that was in the country that happened, but I can tell you that it's probably based on some type of an agriculture, or it could be that you've got and I don't know if there are any tariffs that apply to food coming in from other countries, because we do get lots of food from other countries. It could be people continuing to move that freight forward, because the tariffs apply to some things. They don't apply to all things. All right, so it's really important to know where those get application.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm sure, when it comes to the tariffs and everything happening right now, I'm sure you get a lot of people coming up to you saying, what's going on in the market? What's happening?
Yeah.
What is, I guess, your kind of general answer for that? I'm sure, like the data you showed me earlier before we started recording, there's a lot you can dig into.
Yeah.
But kind of just in general.
Yeah. Well, so if you talk about tariffs, just remember this about tariffs. This is a game that our president plays. It's a little bit of a dangerous game, because it can have long-term challenges for us, but short-term it could benefit on the balancing out of production of goods. And just remember that the middle class in America over the last 20 years has been hit really hard, because a lot of middle-class production jobs. And I live in Alabama. We've had a huge boon in automotive production in Alabama, and that's really helped Alabamians because it's a middle-class job. And look, I grew up lower middle class. I say this all the time. I grew up in redneck Alabama, lower middle class. Okay, so the middle class is the strength of any country, Ashley. If we lose them, you lose the country. And so our president is trying to reinvigorate the jobs for the middle class. That's what's going on with tariffs. All right. So when you were talking about sort of some of the balance and whether this marketplace, when one of the things that I love to look at data. I didn't grow up a data guy. I'm a math guy, so I guess I love data because I'm a math guy. But I just love to look at things. When you think about like this marketplace, is it a good marketplace to be in? I always look at the data of the number of truckers that are continuing to come in and get their authority, and then the ones that leave the marketplace. And so we had this huge increase in the pandemic. I mean, who wouldn't want to join? Freight was like $7 and $8 a mile. Everybody can make money at that. But over the last 4 or 5 quarters, the number of truckers that have come in that have gotten their authority has been equal to the number that have gone out. So we have exact balance. People go, well, it's not a great time to be a trucker. Well, that's not what the data says. The data says there's still plenty of red-blooded American men and women that want to get into trucking, that want to start that dream, that want to chase that dream of being their own independent business owner. And the data shows it by the number of people that come in. And then, of course, once they come in, they usually look for a load board, and then they look for the OIDA membership. And so, I mean, and they should. Mm-hmm. So that's just super important information when you're thinking about sort of the balance in the market.
Now, you always have some good advice to share with our listeners. What do you have for us?
Well, I tell you what. Back when you remember the movie Taken with Liam Neeson?
Yes.
Okay, remember?
Yes.
So I have 3 daughters. I made them all watch it. Because I wanted them to learn one word or 2 words, but one phrase, which is be aware. All the time, be aware. Because he talks about that with his daughter. You got to be aware of everything. So I put cargo taken, be aware. So and it's because the fraud in the system look, it has not let up. All right, and it's because it's not the sort of somebody's at a truck stop and they're getting cargo stolen. And yes, that still happens. That's that's just normal cargo theft. But there's strategic theft, which is by organized crime, and that's continuing to rise. So the amount of cargo that's still stolen is still where it was like 6 months ago, 9 months ago, which is like 400% more than the normal in the market. So I just want owner-operators and small fleet owners to be aware of everything in the market. Like someone would say, "Oh, it's electronics, it's gold bullion, no, or it's pharma, it's somebody stealing Ozempic." Well, by the way, still Ozempic, it's $50 million load. But no, look, it's not just electronics and appliances; it's household goods, it's frozen foods, pistachios. We're one of the big – it's things they can easily fence and get rid of. So I just say that to just be aware if you're an owner-operator, because it can be disastrous to your operation to lose a load and be responsible for it. So just be aware of what's going on. Always check your data. Make that extra phone call. Check out that data really, and make sure you've got really good cybersecurity.
Now, I'm curious what else is going on in the market that maybe OIDA members or listeners might not be aware of.
Thanks for digging in on that. I appreciate you asking the bonus questions. I love it. We're in the bonus round. That's fantastic. Well, one of the things that I started looking at about 12 months ago, I was in Miami at this financial conference about what's on the market. And so one of the major fleet CEOs told me that he was redistributing his freight. And I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, I'm going away from that one-way long-haul freight." And I go, "Oh, you mean like spot market freight or contract freight?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, I'm pivoting away from that. I'm doing more to dedicated." And I said, "Well, why is that?" He said, "Well, I have a brokerage that I can move that freight into and make a better return on it, because the spot market carrier is at a lower cost at this time, because but I can make a better return on that freight if I do it on a dedicated haul, so a round trip haul. So he's repositioning his trucks. And why do I say this to the landline listeners? It's well, where there's a challenge for one, there's always opportunity for others. So that freight gets rolled in his brokerage, and guess where that freight goes? That freight goes into the spot market, and a lot of it goes into a load board. So the reason I say this is that there's more freight coming to the spot market because it's a more legitimate market today, Ashley, than ever. And maybe that explains a little bit why we have that many of those for-hire carriers coming in, because the data's at your hands, the marketplace is at your hands. I mean, you have an ability to be able to run your business seamlessly through technology and through your hard work, of course. But you have more today than ever, and so that's really exciting. And maybe that's an indicator of why more and more owner operators are deciding to chase the dream and become an independent.
Now, one of the things I know you say all the time is negotiate.
Oh, yeah.
What advice do you have when it comes to negotiation that maybe you've heard from brokers?
Yeah. Oh, right, man. What a great! I got a good answer for this, Ashley. Well, thank you, Thank you for remembering. You know, you don't in life. You don't get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. That's how this. And there's nothing better than the spot market. And by the way, the broker knows that they need to negotiate. So I asked this broker at Mid-America, who's been on stage with me many times, and I said, "What's one thing you wish every owner operator knew about your operation and the movement of freight that would benefit them and also benefits you?" And he said, "Oh my gosh, this is real easy." He goes, "I wish the carrier knew the type of freight that we were trying to move." And I said, "Type of freight? You mean like refrigerated van?" No, he goes, no. He goes, "Not the commodity." He goes, "How did we buy the freight?" In other words, when they say buy the freight, they mean how did they go to the shipper and say, "I'll move it for this much"? All right, so that's the negotiation. So how did they get the freight? So and what he said, and I said, "Well, all right, well, you're willing to say that on stage?" He goes, "I sure am." And he goes, "Because it'll benefit our brokerage." And he said, "There's three types. There's contract freight, there's spot market freight, and there's relationship freight." And I go, "Oh, this is really interesting." I put it on a slide and everything. So contract freight is basically, as you would imagine, it's a huge bid that goes out. They're just bidding on 1,000 loads, 10,000 loads, 40,000 loads. The rate is really firm, and it's either called direct tendered or tendered load or a booked load type of freight. So when you're working with a broker, ask them, is this contract freight? They may say no. Then you say, well, is it spot market freight? Spot market freight is when it goes out to the load board, which means it's got to go super fast. Freight on TruckStop's load board, when all the information's there, moves in 60 seconds. So you got to negotiate it super fast. You don't have 10 minutes to go back and forth in 5 phone calls. If it's spot market freight, it moves very fast. By the way, those are tight negotiations. You're not going to be able to move it more than a few pennies, maybe 5 cents, okay? Relationship freight is when that broker gets that piece of freight from that manufacturer, that shipper, and they're the only one to have it. And they've got a lot of room to negotiate on that, depending on the day of the week, depending on the urgency of getting there. So you have lots more to negotiate on that. So just ask, remember, contract freight, spot market freight, relationship freight. And if you know that type of freight, you know how you can negotiate on it, and then everybody wins because you can secure the freight. So that I thought that was super meaningful.
Yeah.
See, brokers aren't always the enemy. You know, sometimes they really, and by the way, they can't have their business without independent owner operators and landline and OOIDA members, no doubt.
All right. Brent, thank you so much.
And Ashley, great to be in the studio. Thank you so much. You made my day.
All right. Nice to have you.